Hello everyone, welcome back to the Calm Learner. Today we are starting a very important chapter for class 7th NCERT Geography, and the name of the chapter is Air. In this chapter we will understand what the atmosphere is and why it is so important for life on earth. Then we will look at the composition of air, that is which gases are present in the atmosphere and in what proportion. After that we will study the structure of the atmosphere layer by layer. We'll also understand clearly the difference between weather and climate, followed by concepts like air pressure and winds, which help us explain rainfall, storms, and monsoon systems. So, this chapter builds a strong foundation for physical geography, whether you are a school student or a serious UPSC aspirant. Let's begin our journey of understanding air, the invisible lifeline of our planet. Now, let us understand a very basic but very important question. What is atmosphere? So, the atmosphere is a thin blanket of gases that surrounds the earth. It is not floating freely, it is held firmly by the earth's gravity. Now, why is the atmosphere so important for us? Because it protects life on earth in many ways. First, it blocks harmful ultraviolet rays coming from the sun, which can be dangerous for living beings. Second, it regulates the earth's temperature so that the days are not too hot and nights are not freezing cold. Third, the atmosphere makes weather and climate possible, like rainfall, winds, and seasons. And most importantly, it provides oxygen for breathing, without which the life cannot exist. So, even though we cannot see the atmosphere, it acts like a protective shield and life support system for our planet. Now, this simple concept becomes the foundation for understanding weather, climate, winds, and even climate change. Now that we understand what the atmosphere is, let us look at an equally important question: what is the atmosphere made of? So, the atmosphere is not made of just one gas, it is mixture of different gases, and each gas has a specific role to play. The largest component of air is nitrogen, which makes up about 78% of the atmosphere. Nitrogen is very important for plant growth and it also helps in controlling burning by diluting oxygen. The second most important gas is oxygen, which forms about 21% of the air. Oxygen is essential for respiration in humans and animals and also supports combustion. Now, next comes argon, which is about 0.93%, which is an inert gas and does not play a major biological role. Then we have carbon dioxide present in very small amount, around 0.03%. Even though it is less in quantity, it is extremely important because plants use it for photosynthesis and it helps in regulating Earth's temperature. Apart from these gases, air also contains water vapor and dust particles whose amount keeps changing from place to place and from time to time. Water vapor is important for cloud formation and rainfall, while dust particles help in formation of clouds. We will study about water vapor and cloud formation in the upcoming slides. So remember this, even gases present in very small quantities play a very big role in controlling weather, climate, and life on Earth. Now let's talk about nitrogen, which is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere. Nitrogen makes up about 78% of the air around us, which means it is present in the largest quantity. Even though nitrogen enters our lungs when we breathe, it is not directly used by human beings during respiration. However, nitrogen is extremely important for plants. It is essential for plant growth and survival. Plants, however, cannot absorb nitrogen directly from air. So, what happens is that soil bacteria convert nitrogen into a usable form which plants can absorb through their roots. This process helps plants grow healthy and indirectly supports all life on earth, including humans. So remember, even though nitrogen is not used directly by humans, it plays a crucial role in food chain which is also an important concept in geography and environmental studies for UPSC. Now let's talk about oxygen, which is the second most plentiful gas in atmosphere. Oxygen is extremely important because humans and animals breathe in oxygen to survive. It is essential for respiration and for releasing energy in our bodies. At the same time, green plants produce oxygen during process of photosynthesis. So this oxygen released by plants is used by humans and animals. Because of this continuous process, a balance of oxygen in the atmosphere is maintained. However, when we cut trees, this balance gets disturbed because fewer plants are left to produce oxygen. So oxygen shows a very clear connection between plants, animals, and human life. Now let's talk about carbon dioxide, which is an important gas in the atmosphere, even though it is present in very small amount. So green plants use carbon dioxide to make their food through the process of photosynthesis. And while doing so, they release oxygen into the atmosphere. On the other hand, humans and animals release carbon dioxide while breathing. Under natural conditions, this creates a balance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because plants use almost the same amount of carbon dioxide that humans and animals release. So, carbon dioxide plays a very important role in maintaining life on Earth. Now, let us understand the role of carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So, carbon dioxide has ability to trap heat coming from the Earth's surface. Because of this, it creates what we call the greenhouse effect. This greenhouse effect is actually necessary because it keeps the earth warm enough for life to exist. However, the problem begins when the amount of carbon dioxide increases beyond the natural level. Excess carbon dioxide released from factories, vehicles, and burning of fuels traps more heat and raises the earth's temperature. This rise in temperature is known as global warming. As a result of global warming, we see the melting of snow and ice, which leads to rise in sea level. This causes flood in coastal areas, and over time, it can lead to climate change and even extinction of some plant and animal species. So, carbon dioxide is essential for life, but excess carbon dioxide is harmful. Now, let us understand the structure of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is divided into 5 layers, starting from the Earth's surface and going upward. The lowest layer is troposphere. This is the layer in which we live and all the weather phenomena like clouds, rain, and wind occur. Above the troposphere is the stratosphere. This layer contains the ozone layer, which protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. Next comes the mesosphere. This is the layer where meteors burn up when they enter Earth's atmosphere. Above that is thermosphere. This layer is very hot and beautiful natural lights called auroras occur here. The uppermost layer is exosphere. This is where satellites revolve around the earth. So each layer of the atmosphere has special role and together they protect life and control weather and climate. Now let's study layers of the atmosphere in a little more detail. The lowest and most important layer of atmosphere is the troposphere. Its average height is about 13 kilometers. This is the layer in which the air we breathe exists. Almost all weather phenomena such as rain, clouds, fog, and hailstorms occur in the troposphere. That is why it is the most important layer for human life. Above the troposphere lies the stratosphere. This layer extends up to the height of about 50 kilometers. The stratosphere is almost free from clouds, which is why it provides ideal condition for flying aeroplanes. An extremely important feature of this layer is the ozone layer, which is present in stratosphere. The ozone layer protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. So while troposphere controls weather and life, the stratosphere acts as a protective shield, making both layers very important. Now let's move to the next two layers of the atmosphere, the mesosphere and thermosphere. So the mesosphere lies above the stratosphere and extends up to the height of about 80 kilometers. This layer is very important because meteoroids burn up here when they enter the Earth's atmosphere, protecting us from falling space rocks. Above the mesosphere is the thermosphere. In this layer, the temperature rises very rapidly with height. A special part of the thermosphere is ionosphere, which plays an important role in radio communication. Radio waves transmitted from Earth are reflected by this layer, making long distance communications possible. So the thermosphere extends roughly about 80 kilometers to 400 kilometers above the Earth. So while the mesosphere acts as a protective layer, the thermosphere is important for communication and space related activities. Now let's move to the uppermost layer of the atmosphere, which is called the exosphere. The exosphere is the outermost layer and the air here is extremely thin. Because the air is so thin, light gases like hydrogen and helium escape into outer space from this layer. This region marks the transition between the Earth's atmosphere and outer space. The exosphere is also important because satellites move in this region, making communication and observation of the Earth possible. So, exosphere forms the outer boundary of our atmosphere, completing the structure of atmospheric layers. Now that we have understood the structure of the atmosphere, let us see what actually happens inside the atmosphere in our day to day life. First, let us understand what is weather. So, weather refers to day to day condition of the atmosphere at a particular place. It includes things like temperature, rainfall, wind, and humidity, and it can change very quickly. For example, it may be sunny in the morning and rainy by the evening. Now, let us understand what is climate. Climate refers to the average weather conditions of a place over a long period of time. It shows a stable and regular pattern and it does not change from day to day. Now, let's clearly understand the difference between weather and climate. If we say today is raining, we are talking about the weather. But when we say the climate of Kerala is humid and tropical, we are talking about the climate. So remember this simple rule, weather is short term while climate is long term. Now that we understand weather and climate, let us talk about one of the most important elements that control both of them, temperature. So temperature refers to the degree of hotness or coldness of the air. The temperature what we feel every day is actually the temperature of atmosphere. Temperature does not remain the same all the time. It changes between day and night and it also changes between season to season. That is why summers are hotter than winters. Now let us understand what controls temperature. An important factor that affects temperature is insolation. Insolation means the incoming solar energy received by the earth. So insolation plays a major role in controlling distribution of temperature on the earth's surface. The amount of insolation decreases from the equator towards poles. As a result, equatorial regions are hotter while polar regions are much colder. So temperature and insolation together help us understand why different parts of the earth experience different climatic conditions. Now let us move on to another very important concept, air pressure. Air pressure or atmospheric pressure means the force exerted by the weight of air on the earth's surface. Even though air looks invisible, it has weight and that weight creates pressure. When air becomes hot, it becomes lighter and rises, creating a low pressure area. On the other hand, cold air is heavier, so it sinks down, creating a high pressure area. So, remember one very important point, air always moves from high pressure to low pressure, and this movement of air is what we call wind. The nature of weather also depends on air pressure. Low pressure areas are usually associated with cloudy or rainy weather, while high pressure areas generally bring clear and sunny conditions. Another important point to remember is that air pressure decreases with height. That is why air pressure is highest at sea level and much lower on mountains. Atmospheric pressure is measured using an important instrument called barometer, a term you should remember especially for UPSC and other competitive exams. Now that we understand air pressure, let us see what wind actually is. Wind is simply the movement of air from high pressure area to a low pressure area. So, wherever there is a pressure difference, air starts moving, and that movement is called wind. Wind can be gentle, like when it softly blows leaves, smoke, or dust, or it can be very strong, especially during storms, sometimes even uprooting trees. An important point to remember is the naming of winds. Winds are named after the direction from which they blow and not where they are going. For example, if the wind is blowing from the west, we call it a westerly wind. This basic idea of wind movement and naming will help us understand different types of wind, such as permanent, seasonal, and local winds, which we will study next. Now let us move on to type of winds. Broadly, winds are classified into three types, and the first category is permanent winds. Permanent winds are those winds that blow throughout the year and in a fixed direction. They are regular and predictable, which is why they play a very important role in shaping the global climate system. The main examples of permanent winds are trade winds, westerlies, and polar easterlies. If you look at the diagram, you can see how these winds are arranged in a latitudinal belts across the earth. Trade winds blow near the equator, westerlies dominate the mid latitudes, and polar easterlies blow near the poles. So these wind systems are closely linked with pressure belts. We'll study about pressure belts in the upcoming videos, so stay tuned. Now let us look at other two types of winds, seasonal winds and local winds. First, seasonal winds. As the name suggests, these winds change their direction with different seasons. The best and most important example is the monsoon winds in India. In summer, the winds blow from sea to land, bringing rainfall, and in winter, they reverse their direction. Seasonal winds are extremely important for Indian agriculture, water resources, and economy. Next, we have local winds. Local winds blow over a small area and for a short period of time. They are caused due to local differences in temperature and pressure. Common examples include land and sea breeze, which we experience in coastal areas. Another important example is the loo, a hot and dry wind that blows over northern plains of India during summer, often causing heat waves. So while permanent winds are global, seasonal winds change with seasons and local winds affect only small regions for short durations. Now let us understand moisture and water vapor in the atmosphere. So when water from rivers, lakes, oceans and land surfaces gets heated, it evaporates and changes into water vapor. This water vapor mixes with the air. The amount of moisture present in the air is called humidity. So when the air contains a large amount of water vapor, we say that the day is humid. An important point to remember is that warm air can hold more water vapor than cold air. That is why humid conditions are usually felt more during hot summer days, making us feel sticky and uncomfortable. This moisture present in the air later plays a key role in cloud formation and rainfall, which we will study next. Now let us see what happens to this water vapor in the atmosphere. When water vapor rises upward, it moves into cooler layers of air and start cooling down. Because of this cooling, the water vapor condenses into tiny water droplets. This process is called condensation. These tiny droplets remain suspended in the air and together form clouds. So clouds are nothing but collections of very small water droplets. When these droplets join together and become heavy, they can no longer float in the air and fall down to the Earth's surface. This falling of water droplets lead us to the next process, which is called precipitation. Now let us move on to the next process, which is precipitation. When the tiny water droplets present in the cloud become heavy, they fall down to the earth due to gravity. This falling of water from clouds to the earth's surface is called precipitation. So when precipitation occurs in liquid form, we call it rain. Rainfall is extremely important because rainwater is the main source of groundwater, which supports agriculture, drinking water, and ecosystems. However, both extremes are harmful. Too little rainfall leads to drought, while too much rainfall can cause floods. Apart from rain, precipitation can also occur in other forms such as snow, sleet, and hail, especially in colder regions. Let us now understand different types of rainfall. So, the first type of rainfall is called convectional rainfall. This type of rainfall is caused by the strong heating of Earth's surface, especially in hot regions. During the day, the sun heats the ground and the air near the surface becomes warm and light. This warm air rises upward. As it rises, it cools down. On cooling, the water vapor present in the air condenses to form clouds, and when the droplets become heavy, rainfall occurs. Because this process depends on strong heating, convectional rainfall is common in tropical and equatorial regions, and it usually occurs in the afternoon. Now let us move to the second type of rainfall known as the relief rainfall or orographic rainfall. This type of rainfall occurs when moist air is forced to rise over a mountain barrier. As the moist air moves upward along the windward side of the mountain, it cools down. Cooling leads to condensation, clouds are formed, and rainfall occurs on the windward side. After crossing the mountain, the air descends on the leeward side. Here the air becomes warmer and drier, so very little or no rainfall occurs. That is why leeward side is called rain shadow region. Relief rainfall is common in mountainous areas, where, for example, along the Western Ghats in India. Now let us look at the third type of rainfall called the cyclonic rainfall. So cyclonic rainfall occurs due to meeting of warm and cold air masses. When these two air masses meet, the lighter and warm air rises over the heavier cold air. As the warm air rises, it cools down, leading to condensation, cloud formation, and rainfall. This type of rainfall usually covers a large area and continues for a longer duration compared to convectional rainfall. So cyclonic rainfall is common in temperate regions and is often associated with low pressure systems and cyclones. So to conclude this chapter, we can clearly see that the air is essential for life on earth. The atmosphere, it acts like a protective blanket, safeguarding us from harmful rays and also playing a major role in controlling weather and climate. Air is not a single gas but mixture of gases such as nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, each of which is important for sustaining life. We also learned that temperature, air pressure, and wind work together to influence daily weather conditions. When air contains moisture, it leads to the formation of clouds, rainfall, and precipitation. Based on the process involved, rainfall is of three main types: convectional, orographic, and cyclonic. So, rainfall supports agriculture, water supply, and life in general, but too much rainfall can cause floods, while too little rainfall can lead to droughts. Finally, it is important to remember that human activities can disturb the balance of the atmosphere, making it our responsibility to protect and conserve it. In the next video, we will continue with the next chapter. If you found this explanation useful, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more NCERT and UPSC oriented content. Thanks for watching.